Geometry students, welcome to class today. You should have just finished your quiz. I hope you did well on that. I will have those graded hopefully over the weekend and get those back to you on Monday. Let's go over some quick announcements that you need to be familiar with. So here we go. There will be no test next week, so I can hear you cheering here at my house in Ringgold all the way there at Berean. No test next week. Remember, you have no school on Thursday and Friday, and that's the reason we're not going to have a test. There's no way we'll finish Chapter 3 next week in just a couple of days. So, no school on Thursday and Friday next week, so enjoy your 4-day weekend, and there will not be a test next week. Please turn in yesterday's homework at this time if you've not done that. Yesterday on Thursday, I gave you homework from lesson 3.2. You were to have that done today. Please turn that in now at this time. Thank you. And then number 3, if anyone does not take the quiz today, primarily I'm talking to Jake and Martin. I know you guys missed a day or two there. You must take it by next Wednesday, and I'll remind you every day next week. You must take the makeup quiz by next Wednesday. All right? So that's basically it. Go ahead and if you're not ready, go ahead and pause the video. But if you're ready, then let's go ahead and get started. But grab your notebooks, grab your books, grab your pencils, grab your calculators. Let's take some notes for a little bit. And I hope you guys will listen, pay attention, do well. It's a Friday, so hang in there, last day of the week. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. We are going to look at something that we actually covered 2 years ago. Let me grab a quick drink of water. My voice is really raspy tonight, so I apologize. We covered this a couple years ago when I had you in bridge math. And see if this rings a bell. Alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, consecutive angles, or consecutive interior angles, and corresponding angles. And so we're going to revisit those 4 terms today, talk about those, review those, and make sure you really, really, really know what those are. And you know why it's so important you know those definitions? Well, because we're going to have some theorems and definitions, or some theorems and postulates and corollaries. They're going to say, if 2 parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then their alternate interior angles are congruent. And if you don't know what the alternate interior angles are, then you don't know which angles are congruent. It's very, very, very important that you understand today's math. So please back it up and listen to it if you need to, and do whatever you have to understand the math. Now, first of all, before we get started with learning these 4 different types of angles, you must understand first what a transversal is. So please write this in your notes. A transversal is a line that intersects 2 or more lines. It's that easy, Mr. Hart? Yeah, it's that easy. A line that intersects 2 or more lines. If I have a line like this, and another line like this. I didn't mean for it to be, I don't want it to be parallel actually. There's 2 lines, right? If I have a line that I draw that intersects those 2 lines, then this line right here that I'm scribbling on right now in red, this line is a transversal. Well, Mr. Earhart, how do you know that's the transversal, not another line? Well, which line is intersecting 2 other lines? Just this line right here. Okay? Any line that intersects 2 or more lines is a transversal. I could draw another line like this if I wanted to. And that would be another transversal, because this line right here intersects here, here, and here. Intersects 3 different lines. Look, here's the deal. Any line that intersects 2 or more lines is called a transversal, and you need to understand that. All right? All right. I want to introduce to you 4 different types of angles that are formed by transversals. Okay? So, go ahead. I'm going to grab another drink here. Go ahead and copy down that picture there in front of you and label those angles accordingly. And we're going to look now at these 4 different types of angles that are formed when you have a transversal. Okay? Please, please, please take some really good notes. Here we go. Corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. First of all, write this in your notes. They come in sets of 2. Or pairs, however you want to say it. They come in pairs or sets of 2. Okay? And here they are. Are you ready? 1 and 5 would be corresponding angles. Are you seeing the pattern? 2, sorry about that, my computer's messing up, and it's still messing up. 2 and 6 would be another example of corresponding angles. 3 and 7 are corresponding angles, and 4 and 8 are corresponding angles. Okay, now let me hold on there. So do you see how this top angle here, my number one fear, I'll be honest with you guys, my number one fear is when this diagram gets turned around, and I'm going to do that later, that you then don't see these angles. When I'm talking about corresponding angles, notice how they fall right on the transversal. So you first of all have to find the transversal. Once you find the transversal, and here's our transversal, then you understand these angles fall right on it. Now corresponding angles, notice here's your transversal. Notice corresponding angles fall on the same side, like 1 and 5. Well, 1 and 5 are both on the left. 3 and 7 are both on the left. 2 and 6 are both on the right. 4 and 8 are both on the right. And they're all corresponding angles. Notice how 1 is up high above this line, and 5 is up high above this line, and they're both on the left side of the transversal. That's why 1 and 5 go together. Do you see it? 3 and 7 are both below the lines that are being intersected, and they're both to the left of the transversal, so they're corresponding angles. Okay, and the reason I'm saying all this is you've got to be able to understand something here, and I didn't want to do that, but I might have to move that. Yeah, I might have to move it down here for a second. I want you to understand something here, guys. Well, I didn't know it would do that. Let's do this. It's because it's real important that you see this, okay? There. Look, if this whole thing gets turned, you've still got to be able to see this is the transversal right here. This is the transversal. And if that's the transversal, then here's the angles falling right on it. And 1 would still be corresponding with 5. This angle would still correspond with this angle. This angle would still correspond with this angle. And this angle would still correspond with this angle. It doesn't matter, students, which direction this thing is. Okay, it's very important that you see that. So those angles there are the corresponding angles. Go over this again and again if you need to. But you have to know that. Consecutive angles. Consecutive angles. Now usually, I'm going to tell you what the book calls it. I don't like this. I've never heard of one textbook calling these angles this name, but this is what the book calls these angles. I've got to tell you this because in some of their answer keys in the back of the book they might have this. They call consecutive angles same side interior angles. Now I would make note of that. We're going to call them consecutive. I really should have put the word interior and I didn't, and I apologize. It's I-N-T-E-R-I-O-R, consecutive interior angles, okay? But the book, I have never heard of any book call these angles same side interior angles, and I don't like that because I think when you get to college and the ACT test or whatever, if they have a question about those angles, they're not going to call them that I've ever heard of same side interior angles. They're called consecutive interior angles. So whatever name you want to use, be familiar with both of those because we're going to use any of those at all that we feel like, okay? All right, consecutive interior angles. Now, these also come in sets of 2. You might want to make note of that. Sets of 2, okay? And here are the consecutive interior angles. 3 and 5 would be consecutive interior angles. 4 and 6 would be consecutive interior angles. And that's it. None others. That's it. They're called consecutive interior angles. Now interior, because notice the 2 lines that are being intersected, this line and this line, notice how these 4 angles fall inside, on the inside of those 2 lines. And by the way, here I go again trying to be all creative, but it's very important that you see this. I don't care if it's turned like this. Notice here's the two lines that are being intersected. That's frustrating. Intersected right here. And notice these four angles are still on the inside of those two lines. They're on the inside. All right, there we go. Now, anyways, these are consecutive interior angles. Please memorize this. I can't say that enough. I know you probably hate the class and all these terms and definitions and all that stuff. Guys, it's geometry. You have to know this. Alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. Well, first of all, they also come in sets of two. All right. And here they are. Notice the keyword interior. So we know we're going to be dealing with the inside here. And notice alternate. That would imply they're not on the same side. So angles 3 and 6 are alternate interior angles. Angles 4 and 5 are alternate interior angles. And I'm not going to turn this whole thing for you again. However, no matter what direction this thing was turned, you need to be able to recognize they're on the inside. And notice how the 4 and the 5 are on opposite sides of the transversal, and 3 and 6 are on the opposite side of the transversal. We call this alternate, or we call these angles alternate interior angles. And lastly, alternate exterior angles. And they do come in sets of two. So make note of that. And now we're talking about the exterior angle. So it would be these two on the outside and these two here. So that's exterior. And then notice the word alternate. So using green, I'm going to circle them for you. Angle 1 and angle 8 would go together. They're alternate exterior angles. Angles 2 and 7 would go together. And those two angles would be called alternate exterior angles. They come in sets of two. All right? Now, you're going to have to really go over this and over this and over this to get it and to remember it and memorize it. But whatever it takes, students, whatever it takes. Now, I usually do cut and paste the pictures in for you, but I felt like just one example we're going to do. There's really no need to do that. So go ahead and open your books. Pause the video if you need to. Go ahead and open your books. I'm going to grab a drink of water here to page 122. And we're going to look at example 1 at the top of the page, example 1. All right? Okay, and the reason I didn't cut and paste, I wasn't being lazy, but this is just so easy to quickly draw. Okay, example number 1 has a line here, a line here, and then a transversal like this, and it has angles here and here. Now the question is, this is problem letter A, top of the page, example 1. Describe the relationship between the angles. Now listen, here's your transversal right here, okay? There's our transversal. Now notice angles 1 and 2 are on opposite sides, and they're on the interior. So we call those two angles alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. There we go. That simple. I mean, really and truly that simple. All right, let's take a look at example number 2. Example number 2 has a line going like this, and then one that's a little more slanted if my computer will let me do it. Good, it did. And then a line going straight up and down. There we go. Now let's see, we have numbers here and here. Now do you understand, students, this is your transversal right here. So notice first of all, 3 and 4 are on the exterior. Remember, these two angles here are on the interior, and these two angles here are on the interior. Okay? These two angles up here are the exterior, and these two angles down here are the exterior. Okay? So 3 and 4 are exterior, and notice they're on opposite sides of the transversal, so we would call those two angles alternate. Remember, they're on the exterior, alternate exterior angles. You've got to learn to recognize these so very quickly, students, so very quickly. All right? And then lastly, number 3, or letter C, angles 5 and 6. And let's see what we got here. We have a line slanting a little bit this way and a little bit this way, in a line like this. And let's see what angles they have for us. 5 and 6. Now, if you'll look at this, if it helps you to do this, please don't hesitate to do it. You can take your book and turn it if you need to. If you don't, that's fine too. But some students really like to see that transversal going up and down. And when they turn it like that right away, they say, oh, these are on the interior. Here's my 2 interior angles. Here's my 2 other interior angles. Okay, they're on the interior, and they're on the same side. They're on the same side. So I have, remember the book, we're using 2 names, same side interior angles. The more proper phrase that most math books will use will be consecutive interior angles. Okay, now a lot of you don't need to turn it, and that's fine. If you don't need to turn it, let me go like this and get some of that green stuff out of there. There we go. And then put a 6 here. You know, so a lot of you can see, okay, here's my 2 lines that are being intersected. Here's one line. Here's the other line. Here's the transversal. And you can still see that these 2 angles here and these 2 angles here are on the interior, and that's fine. Whatever helps you, okay? But these 2 angles are definitely on the interior, and they're on the same side, so we call them consecutive interior angles, or this book uses another phrase, same side interior angles, okay? Either way, that's totally up to you. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you come to class ready to work on Monday. We're going to do the homework together on Monday, so I'm giving you a little bit of a weekend off and from homework. And you guys that have been sick, I hope you get caught up on your stuff, and I will talk to you guys on Monday.